Alright, so this is my video 2 for APUSH for March 24th, and picking up with the Pilgrims. In 1629, a larger and more powerful colony called Massachusetts Bay was established by Congregationalists, Puritans who wanted to reform the Anglican Church from within. So these were the non-separatist Puritans, the Congregationalists. And they were going to be ones who discovered Boston. This began what is known as the Great Puritan Migration, which lasted from 1629 to 1642, not to be confused with the 1920s Great Migration. Led by Governor John Winthrop, Massachusetts Bay developed along Puritan ideals. While on board the ship Arabella, Winthrop delivered a now famous sermon, a model of Christian charity, urging the colonists to be a city upon a hill, a model for others to look upon, later referenced by Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. All Puritans believed that they had a convent with God, and the concept of convents was central to their entire philosophy, in both political and religious terms. Government was to be a covenant among the people. Work was to serve a communal ideal, and of course, the Puritan Church was always to be served. This is why both the Separatists and the Congregationalists did not tolerate religious freedom in their colonies, even though they both had experience and fled for persecution reasons. The settlers of the Massachusetts Bay Colony were strict Calvinists, and Calvinist principles dictated their daily lives. For example, much had been written about the Protestant work ethic and its relationship to the eventual development of market economy. In fact, some historians believe the roots of Civil War can be traced back to the founding of the Chesapeake region of New England, as the plantation economy dependent upon slave labor developed in the Chesapeake and in subsequent southern colonies, while New England became a commercial center. Two major incidents during the first half of the 17th century demonstrated Puritan religious intolerance. Roger Williams, a minister in the Salem Bay settlement, taught a number of controversial principles, among them that the church and state could be separate. The Puritans banished Williams, who subsequently moved to modern-day Rhode Island and founded a new colony. Rhode Island's charter allowed for free exercise of religion, and it did not require voters to be church members. Anne Hutchinson was a prominent proponent of antinomianism, the belief that faith in God's grace, as opposed to the observance of mortal law and performance of good deeds, suffice to earn one's a place among the elect. Her teachings also challenged Puritan beliefs and the authority of Puritan clergy. The fact that she was an intelligent, well-educated, and powerful woman in a resolutely patriarchal society turned many against her. She was tried for heresy, convicted, and banished. So both her and Roger Williams were banished. They both go on to help create Rhode Island, essentially. She makes Portsmouth, and he makes Providence. All right, Puritan immigration to New England came to a near halt between 1649 and 1660, the years during which Oliver Cromwell ruled as Lord Protector of England. Cromwell's reign represented the culmination of English civil wars, which the Puritans won. For slightly over a decade, Cromwell ruled England as a republic, complete with a constitution. The death of Cromwell robbed the Puritans of their best known and most respected leader, and by 1660 the Stuarts were restored to the throne. During the interregnum period, meaning between the kings, Puritans had little motive to move to the New World. Everything they wanted, freedom to practice their religion, as well as representation in the governments, was available to them in England. With the restoration of the Stuarts, many English Puritans are again immigrated to the New World. Not coincidentally, these immigrants brought with them some of the Republic ideals of revolution. The lives of English settlers in New England and Chesapeake differed considerably. Entire families tended to immigrate to New England in the Chesapeake. Immigrants were often single males. The climate in New England were more hospitable, and so New Englanders tended to live longer and have larger families than the Chesapeake residents. A stronger sense of community and the absence of tobacco as a cash crop led New Englanders to settle in larger towns that were closer to another. Those in the Chesapeake lived in smaller, more spread out farming communities. While both groups were religious, New Englanders were definitely more religious, settling near meeting houses and doing all their meeting in churches and whatnot. So there's more parts about slavery in the other colonies. We're going to say that for a later time. What I'm going to do now is transition over to reading the key concepts. Give me just a second here. All right, here we go. So this is the key concepts. We're not going to do all the ones for period 2 or unit 2 because there's a lot of them. We'll just do some of them for today, and then we'll probably wrap up unit 2 tomorrow. Okay, so Europeans developed a variety of colonization and migration patterns influenced by different imperial goals, cultures, and varied North American environments where they settled, and they competed with each other and American Indians for resources. Spanish, French, Dutch, and British colonizers had different economic imperial goals involving land and labor that shaped the social and political development of their colonies as well as their relationships with native populations. In the 17th century, early British colonies developed along the Atlantic coast with regional differences that reflected various environmental, economic, cultural, and demographic factors. Competition over resources between European rivals and American Indians encouraged industry and trade and led to the conflict in the Americas, like fur trade with French and some early relations with the Powhatan tribes and stuff like Jamestown. The British colonies participated in political, social, and cultural and economic exchanges with Great Britain that encouraged both the stronger bonds with Britain and resistance to Britain's control. All right, we're not really to all that. Yeah, let's see what else we got here. All right, Spanish efforts to extract wealth from the land led them to develop institutions based on subjugating native populations, converting them to Christianity, and incorporating them along with enslaved and free Africans into Spanish colonial society. French and Dutch colonial efforts involved relatively few Europeans and relied on trade, alliances, and intermarriage with American Indians to build economic and diplomatic relations and acquire furs and other products for export to Europe. English colonization efforts attracted a comparatively large number of male and female British migrants as well as other European migrants, all of whom sought social mobility, economic prosperity, religious freedom, and improving living conditions. These colonists focused on agriculture and settled on land taken from Native Americans, from whom they lived separately. All right, the regions. I'm going to do this kind of partial. The Chesapeake and North Carolina colonies grew prosperous, exporting tobacco, a labor-intensive product initially cultivated by white, mostly male indentured servants, and later by enslaved Africans. The New England colonies, initially settled by Puritans, developed small towns with family farms and achieved a thriving mixed economy of agriculture and commerce. Transatlantic trade, not there yet. Interactions between European rivals and American Indian populations fostered both accommodation and conflict. French, Dutch, and British and Spanish colonies allied with and armed American Indian groups who frequently sought alliances with the Europeans against other American Indian groups. British conflicts with American Indians over land, resources, and political boundaries led to military confrontations like Metacom's War or King Philip's War in New England. That's pretty much it for that. Slave trade, not there yet. Yeah, the rest looks like it's going to be later on stuff. So I'm trying to scan real quick. Yeah, okay. So we'll start the second video there for today, and we'll pick up there tomorrow. We'll probably finish up Unit 2 leading up to the French Indian War, and then we'll go from there the rest of the week.